how wonderful it is to just rejoice in that. Thank you so much. If we could just give them all some more love. And, pretty much just says it. God is all there is. I always find it somewhat amusing that, in spiritual communities, especially in the New Thought community, our whole beingness, everything that we do in the New Thought community is we are attuned to and aligned with the principles, the eternal principles of God, the eternal principles of love, the eternal principles of truth, the eternal principles of wellness and goodness in every way, shape, and form. And so sometimes, you hear people talking and they'll say something like, I saw so-and-so, or, maybe it's regards to a new romantic relationship. Oh, but are they spiritual? And it's like, I always find that amusing because, everybody's spiritual. There's nothing that's not spiritual. Everything is spiritual. Everything is God. We can try to not be spiritual. And I think it's somewhat synonymous with, are they attuned to the eternal truth teachings? And sometimes we get lost in those things. And I think that part of our journey here as human beings having, we're spiritual beings having human experiences. Every single one of us is on a journey to wholeness. Some of us are aware that we're on a journey to wholeness, and some of us aren't aware that we're on a journey to wholeness. Some of us are aware that we're on a journey of wholeness some of the time, not so much of the time. And so we want to start becoming aware, because the journey to wholeness means you will be aware of your wholeness all of the time.
Yes.
And so, as somebody who used to, and some of you who have heard me speak before, I'm the first one who's going to out myself with all my flaws and my imbalances and my impurities, because early on in life, I was excluded. I had the experience of being excluded from a lot of things. I was that little kid that was the last one picked. It was such a thrill for me if I was the second to last one to be picked for the team. And it's in hindsight, I was being picked for something that I didn't really want to be a part of anyway, because I wasn't a big sports person in terms of playing. I like certain sports. But anyway, so it became very important for me, and this is where you can find good in something that might not be so good, but it became very important for me to emanate inclusion, to extend love.
Yes.
And so what a week it's been, right? We just had an election, and so I think we should probably address the elephant in the room. And what I mean by that is there are fields of energy. And there's the ultimate, the absolute field of energy. So in our truth teachings, the absolute is what we adhere to. The absolute of pure grace, pure beauty, pure love. And how does that express itself in and through and to and as our lives? Well, it first expresses itself through the field of energy known as you. So if you've ever, read Ernest Holmes' book, This Thing Called You, it's probably, Ernest Holmes, for those of you who don't know, he's one of the forefathers and the founder of Science of Mind, which is what our lineage comes through. And his teachings are profound. They carry a vibrational field. And if you ever read any of the works by masters, by real masters, so if you think of, for example, any of the holy texts, you've got the Hebrew Bible, the Christian Bible. For those of you who want to get caught up on lingo, used to be the Old Testament and the New Testament, but it's more politically correct to say the Hebrew Bible and the Christian Bible, but whatever feels good. So we know that those texts, some of you may not know how they were written, and this pretty much goes whether it's the Bhagavad Gita or any of the other sacred texts or Gospels. There was a sect of spiritual mystics back just before Jesus and after, and way before, go back to Moses. There's always been a sect of enlightened ones that have adhered to principles that keep them in the field of the absolute. And again, the absolute is pure holy light, pure holy grace, it's bliss. So sometimes you might see some of these holy people, you see maybe the Dalai Lama or somebody, and they just seem all calm and relaxed. But in that call, and sometimes people think that, oh, maybe if you're like a little too spiritual, you might be like, woo, or you have your heads in the clouds. Well, if you have your head in the clouds and you're not grounded, then you're actually not enlightened. You're on your way, as we all are. But we want to become aware that what they were doing is when you, so there was a sect called the Essenes. I don't know if any of you are familiar with the Essenes, but the Essenes predated Jesus, and then also it was believed that Jesus was one of the Essenes. And the Essenes were mystical people. I guess today, in a more modern way, they would have been kind of practicing more of the Kabbalistic nature of Judaism back at the time, which then migrated over into Judaism and Christianity. And the Essenes, when you scribed a sacred text, you had to go into a deep, deep place of being clean, being absolutely clean. And so literally, they would have mikveh baths. Mikveh baths were literal baths, big baths. You'd walk down a stairway into a body of water, and then you'd come out the other side clean. And also, you would somewhat know that as a baptismal in the Christian faith today. And so they would be clean, but there was a lot you had to do before you could scribe any sacred text. So if you were going to scribe the Torah, you would start to look over and you would scribe. You couldn't just say like, hey, I'm here, I just want to go ahead and start scribing the Word of God. You had to become clean, and you had to be anointed as to be able to do that. And so they would scribe it, and that's why the sacred texts hold a vibration. There's a vibration and a frequency of energy. And some people, modern day mystics like Ernest Holmes and Eva Bell Werber and a variety of other people in our movement that have been around, Emerson, Einstein being a very spiritual being. These people, they adhered to being clean so much so that it spilled out into all of their works. And so you see somebody like the Dalai Lama, and they're holding a particular energy. And if you're blessed enough to be around some of these people, and by the way, you are these people. So there's not those people and these people, and there's actually not a they. There's no they, there's only we. And there's only one, there's only us, but God, it seems like I'm looking at a whole group of people right here. But we're all one and we're all connected, and everything in the universe is that butterfly effect that we talk about. Everything self-reflects back to you. So these frequencies of energies, there's fields. There's fields of energy. So you always will hear me, I kind of am the self-professed medicine man with regards to divine energy medicine, and the reason, and you've heard me talk a little bit about it before, but the reason I'm so enamored with it is because it starts to, when you start to become aware of your own human energy field and what makes up you, you will start to find your way to your own divinity. And when you find your own divinity, you're also going to find God. And you're going to find God first in your own field, because you want to know God as you. We're born in the image and likeness of God. But again, that's a nice saying, but you want to embody it. You want to feel it. You want to know it. You want your toes to know it. You want your nose to know it. You want everywhere in between to know it. And it's a beautiful and it's a humbling experience. And I tell you, before I woke up, I would have thought, being humbled or living a life of humility just would have sounded like the worst thing possible. But it is the most beautiful thing possible. When you're humble, you're open to bliss, you're open to grace. And all of the sacred texts point to bliss. And they make it so simple. There's a lot of truths, as Jesus said, as he was explaining to the disciples, then you shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free. The truth, so backing up just a little bit, we're all on a healing journey. Every single one of us, we're healing, because if you're here, if you're a human being, you're on a journey to become whole. And like I said, you might not know you're on a journey to become whole, because you might be settled into a mediocre life of keeping a status quo. But what I can tell you for sure is whatever your divine energy quotient is right now, however much divine life force, we all go and we take yoga classes and we talk about chi or ki or prana. But what is chi or ki or prana, which they're all the same thing? And if you're a sci-fi nerd and you want to call it the force, same thing. But force, chi, ki, prana, is God. It's pure, holy eternal life. And we want to open up our channels so that we can express more of that through us. So I am completely that weirdo nerd that I would have been making fun of years ago before I woke up, but I did wake up. And now I'm in love with life. I wasn't in love with life prior to my awakening. As a matter of fact, I found out as I started digging around in my own energy field that there was parts of life I didn't like. And because our lives are all predicated on what we've chosen to believe, because everything you believe, you chose. Every belief you have, you chose. And most of those beliefs we're not aware of anymore because, they're buried in our subconscious. But you'll know what you believe by just looking out and seeing what you see. And so there's that field of our own energy body. And then there's other fields. There's the next field out is going to be the field of your friends and family. And generally, it's whatever you put into those fields that's going to be your experience. And so whatever I'm putting into my personal body temple field is what I'm going to experience in my body temple. And so we want to have divine right discernment to know the difference between truth, God's truth, the eternal truth, and misinformed lowercase truth. So, for example, before I go there, I just want to continue on with the field, and I'm going to come back to the example. The example. You might have a craving and think like, oh my God, I really need some protein. And so you think you need a bacon cheeseburger to fulfill and satiate your desire for protein. And there might be some protein in there that might help you a little bit, but it's all shrouded in a whole bunch of stuff that's not good for you. And it's going to have some detrimental side effects. And so depending on what you ingest or digest into your beingness, you're going to have to deal with the side effects afterwards. And when you deal with God and you ingest and you allow yourself to digest truth, even as it comes to food, you're going to have the side effect of grace and brilliance and beauty and wellness flowing to and through you. And so this field then extends out to that next field, and the next field is your friends and family, and we're putting energy into those. And I'm just going to skip right on over to the political field. So the political field is, there's a field that kind of defies the Democrats. There's a field that kind of defines the Republicans. And so a lot of people start to identify with their definition of what that is. So we just had an election, and it doesn't matter whether you were for Trump, or you were for Hillary, or you were for Bernie, or you were for Johnson, or you were for Gayle, any of the people you were for. It matters what are we putting into the field of this great country. So some of the erroneous information would be, so Donald Trump wanted to build a wall. Why does he want to build a wall? Because there's a faction of people that don't feel safe. So we get lost in the misperception of like, if I build a wall and I keep out these people of the they, of which there is no they, there's only one of us. If I keep these people out, I'll be safe. And that's a very false sense of security, because that's being done from the level of the ego. But if you back it up a little bit and say, okay, wait a minute, I want to feel safe, which means I don't feel safe. So if I want to go to first cause and get very deep into my spiritual practice, I want to anchor putting feeling safe into the field, feeling empowered into the field. I want to put a sense of courage into the field. I want to put a sense of divine right action into the field. I don't want to put, so I might be, if I'm saying I need to build a wall and I need to keep these people out because it's going to create a sense of safety, I'm putting fear into the field. And we don't want to put fear into the field. I'm assuming we don't want to put fear into the field, because fear has a whole host of side effects that just don't feel good. And I'm assuming we all want to feel good. And so we want to start to cultivate lives where we're feeling good and become aware of where we're intending from, where are we praying from, where are we living from? Am I living from a place of fear? And fear is connected to, so first of all, it's also important to understand what fear is and how fear isn't actually all that bad. Fear is a temporal, illusionary energy that only exists in the human realm to the degree that you believe it. For example, I was shopping in this area years ago, and there was in Westwood Village, and there's these two streets and they look very similar to each other. And I had parked on one, and then I went about my day and I was doing all my stuff. And then for some reason, I thought I parked on the other one. And I came back, and I was like, oh my God, where's my car? And I'm looking, and I'm looking, and I'm looking, and I'm like, and the adrenaline starts rushing, and I'm having a visceral experience, a fearful experience based on erroneous information, until I, surrendered, and I was like, oh, I'm not parked on this street. I was parked on this street, and lo and behold, there's my car. But you can see how it's a temporary, illusionary energy that provides you with panic and distress. And so the adrenaline was rushing through, and I'm worried, and oh my God, and I'm going to have to call the police, and I'm going to have to make a report, blah, blah, blah. And it was all just fake. And we do that all the time. And one of my favorite expressions is, don't get your energy don't get your exercise jumping to conclusions. And that is what our ego does. It jumps to conclusions, and generally erroneous conclusions, and it is exhausting. When you jump to erroneous conclusions, it's exhausting. And our community is based on inclusion. It's based on love. It's based on truth. And so, whatever side of the fence you were on with the election, what do we want to put into the field? We want to put into the field love and inclusion. And so there are certain people in politics that, first of all, it's also good to know that it's not so-and-so or such and such that's our savior. We're our savior. And so whatever I put it in, the political system is a collective outpicturing. It's an outpicturing of the collective energy. So if we look at it, we can just see plain as day the collective beliefs of the United States. There's a certain portion that is operating from fear on both sides. And I'm saying both sides, even though there's more than two sides, because you've got the Green Party, the Independents, everybody else. But you'll see what the majority of people believe based on how it outpictures. And politicians are going to respond to the collective. The law of emergence dictates that what is being put into a field is what's going to emerge out of that field. And so we want to be very clear. So whoever won, we know who won, right? But whoever had won, if it had gone the other way, or if it had been, Johnson or one of the other ones, our work wouldn't be done. We still would have to be conscious. Some of the things that people do is all of a sudden it's like, oh, okay, so-and-so got to become president, and they're in alignment with my views, more or less. And so I can just kind of let go. And it's like, no, we still have to do our work. We have to still be vigilant as to what we're putting into the field. And so as a spiritual community, I'm imagining we all want to put into the field a world and a country that works for everyone. And so it's not done. You've seen people who act a particular way one moment, and then they act a particular way another moment. Yes. The one thing that I really heard is, when we create this community here, like this morning, we're creating a field of energy. So we came in, we did meditation, we did prayer, we did all of that before you got here. There was a nice prayerful time that we spent. Then we did the meditation. It starts to create a field. And then when people create a field, a frequency of energy, and you walk into it and it starts to feel good, yes. And it starts to have an effect on your field. Yes. And then your field starts to open up. And you can always tell where truth is by how you feel. But you want to be really clear with some divine discernment. And they say that we want to listen to the still small voice. And generally you want to, I think the first time I was here I was talking about listening to and becoming aware of your higher heart. Your higher heart is that part of your beingness that allows you to know the truth. And so sometimes you have to hear what's underneath. You want to get beneath a feeling, because a feeling does not necessarily mean truth. So facts do not necessarily mean truth. Sometimes facts line up with truth, and sometimes they don't. Sometimes it's just the fact. So if I get slapped, and somebody just slaps me across the face, and be like, okay, the truth is, they just slapped me. But what is the real truth? What's the real truth? Why did they slap me?
Fear.
Exactly. And what in me allowed myself to be slapped. That's the truth. So I got to get underneath the level of effects, the world of effects, and I got to start seeing what is underneath there. And that's where the still small voice is. That's where the higher heart is I'm going to like be still and know. So our community is founded on profound mysticism. Mysticism that means that prayer and affirmation and meditation, all the varying forms of meditation, will take you into the mystical teachings. And so George Washington Carver, one of my favorite mystics, Einstein, another one of my favorite mystics, but George Washington Carver, for those of you who may know him more of a scientist or the Peanut Man, some of you may not know who he is, but he is a profound mystic. He was a black man right out of slavery, grew up, as a little boy right out of slavery, and was unaffected by it, truly. He had an ailment that kept him from being able to participate in life normally. And so he was kind of forced to turn within. He spent a lot of time just contemplating and revealing with God. And as he grew up, he became enamored with nature. And so, and nature, as you've heard me say before, is a way that it's God's reflection of truth back to us. And when we veer away from nature, we start to see the ramifications because we're veering away from truth. And so George Washington Carver, the man who spoke with the Peanuts, he left a perfect blueprint of how to a roadmap of how to work in life. So he was the guy who found out all the various things you could do with the peanut. And what he would do is, he was a very deeply mystical and spiritual person. He would go into the stillness, into prayer, into meditation, and then he would start to read a field of energy. Because we know everything is energy, yes? And everything is information encoded in the energy. So the wisdom of God, everything we need to know is available, and everything we need to know to be able to interpret that is available. Some of us don't think, we might not think we're that gifted, but we are. Because these and greater things ye shall do. And so he would sit there, and I imagine he did it like this. I don't know how he actually did it, but I imagine here's the peanut, and he's just kind of like, okay, peanut, reveal to me your secrets. Tell me your secrets. I want to know what you can do about this, and what you can do about to make the world better. And then the peanut, just vibrating its peanutness, just sitting there and oh, somebody's asking me about all my magnificence. I'm so excited. And the peanut starts to emanate the wisdom. And because he said, I'm open to hearing with the still small voice, the wisdom encoded in the energy of the peanut, it revealed its secrets. He would log them out, and then he would go into the lab, and he would do those experiments. And lo and behold, the peanut was right. And so it's a really wonderful way to understand how to navigate through life. And it's like, okay, we have to become still. We have to listen to the still small voice. And so in this journey to wholeness, we're going to have to keep reapplying that. And so it doesn't stop. You're going to get to a certain level where you applied it and you've had some sort of an aha moment. And you don't want to let an aha moment grab you as a mystical experience and then be fleeting into the past. I'm sure some of you have had aha moments where it feels it's like, oh my God, like a God wink or whatever. We then want to cultivate that, and then we want to embody it. You want to bring it down all the way to your core. And so I'm just going to kind of finish up with something. A lot of people during this election cycle felt overwhelmed. And like I said earlier, your life, you're going to experience your life how you have it defined. So everything you experience is going to come from your belief system, which is where you define everything. And so a lot of people have the word overwhelmed defined as bad. Oh my God, I'm so overwhelmed. There was a lot of people who were overwhelmed with everything that happened during this election cycle. So what I'd like to do is set a stage to release overwhelm. And I looked up, because I was like, you know what? Whelmed. The definition of whelmed is a surge flowing or heaping up abundantly.
Oh, wow.
So that can be like of anything. I can be overwhelmed with a heaping serving of fear and be overwhelmed, or I can be overwhelmed with peace and love and joy. So I'm saying I think this is a primo time to be overwhelmed with peace, with love, with joy. Imagine you're overwhelmed with spaciousness. You're overwhelmed with prosperity. You're overwhelmed with love. You're overwhelmed with divine strength. It's like, oh my God, I am so overwhelmed with generosity and kindness. I'm overwhelmed with it. So I'm always looking for things like, how can I redefine things, That word contagion, usually a lot of people say, oh, contagious. That's what's a bad thing. What a contagion of good. I'm contagiously healthy. I'm contagiously magnificent. That's what we want to embody. So, I'm going to proclaim that if you will join me and stand, we're just going to do a couple affirmations. So I'm just going to ask you to join me and repeat after me. I am overwhelmed with peace, joy, and spaciousness.
I am overwhelmed with peace, joy, and spaciousness.
I am overwhelmed with faith, optimism, and clarity.
I am overwhelmed with faith, optimism, and clarity.
I am overwhelmed with vitality, wellness, and vibrancy.
I am overwhelmed with vitality, vibrancy.
Yeah, it was backwards, but it was there. Overwhelmed with vitality, wellness, and vibrancy, or vibrancy and wellness, it's all good. I'm overwhelmed with prosperity, success, and enthusiasm.
I am overwhelmed with prosperity, success, and enthusiasm.
And I am overwhelmed with freedom, synchronicity, and wisdom.
I am overwhelmed with freedom, synchronicity, and wisdom.
And so it is.
And so it is.
And so I let it be.
And so I let it be.
Amen.
Amen.
Thank you. That is the conclusion of our time. And it would be my honor that everybody truly allow yourself to just embody that. Little secret, when you call forward something, when you evoke it, and you allow it, and you embody it, it will motivate you. It will enthusiate you. So just let marinate in that, and then just okay, and all of a sudden, that's the key to inspiration. Just let it happen, because all of a sudden, you're so marinated in that light, that it's only good things. You always start thinking good things. So that's good. Am I inviting up the ushers? Yes, I thought so. I just thought we're getting poised for a song, which I know we are. So I'd like to invite the ushers up as we begin to participate in conscious giving. And let me tell you, when you are overwhelmed with prosperity, so let's just, assume you've reached this point in life where you are so 100% knowing that God is your source and your supply. You can't outgive God. You can just give and give and give and give, but the money just keeps coming and coming and coming. That's where we're all headed. So I just want you to allow that frequency to overwhelm you. So it's oh my God, it's I can't get rid of this stuff fast enough. It just keeps coming in. So we want to allow that. So as you prepare, we also want to know, of course, energy, money is just energy. And so we're all being open vessels to receive more of that life force that shows up in one of the ways, which is money, in really good ways. So we want to bless whatever you have that you are going to be tithing to this magnificent spiritual center. Just holding it in your hands with our hearts and just blessing it as we go forth and multiply.
And I'll walk down the center. If you could hand your surveys to the end, I'll pick up all the surveys, please.